All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and thank you for joining us here at Where Am I to Go podcast. Before we start our show today, there's a couple things I would like to bring to your attention. First of all, we have a Facebook page where we post lots of pictures of places we've been and things that we've done, and also other little things that people might be interested in knowing. We also have an email address at whereamitigopodcast@gmail.com. If anybody has any ideas, suggestions, or thoughts about our program, please let us know. I'm more than interested in hearing comments, feedback, and that type of stuff, and it will also help to make a better show. And lastly, we are on Patreon. If anybody's interested in joining us there and helping us along with our adventures, we would be more than happy to have your assistance. Now, thanks again for joining us today, and let's get on with the show. Today we are in Douglas, Wyoming, which is north of Cheyenne, east of Casper. It's right on the interstate, pretty easy to get to, very easy to get to. It's kind of the fun place of Wyoming, I would say. It's where they have the state fair. They have a lot of different types of conventions. They used to have a drag strip here, but I think that is now defunct. But we are here with Jenna. She is the curator of 3 different areas here. She's in charge of the Wyoming Pioneer Memorial Museum, the Fort Fetterman site, which is a state park.
State historic site.
A state historic site. And then also the World War II POW camp.
Camp Douglas.
Camp Douglas. And so Jenna is going to talk to us a little bit about her job, her 3 different museum areas, and we're going to go through this museum. Thank you, Jenna, for taking your time today, and welcome to Where Am I to Go?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's just kind of start off with Fort Fetterman.
Okay, Fort Fetterman, state historic site. It is about 9 miles outside of Douglas on Highway 93. It is a seasonal operation, so it's closed right now, but it's open Memorial Day to Labor Day. We stayed open a little later this year due to COVID. We wanted more guests, and we ended up having one function that was outside this year, so in September. We also have a friends group called Friends of Fort Fetterman, and they're instrumental in helping us with all of our programs out there and fundraising and whatnot. The fort was named after Fetterman, Captain Fetterman, who
and what happened to Captain Fetterman?
Oh, let me tell you about him.
Now, the fort is named after him. This is not where these events took place.
Exactly, which we get mistaken all the time for Fort Phil Kearny. We get people calling saying, "Oh, we're at the Fetterman battle site," and blah blah blah. We're, oh well, you're 180 miles away, so
I think I made
you need
this
to come
mistake.
to Fort Fetterman down in Douglas.
I made this mistake when we were at the KC Museum, and I said something about Fetterman meeting his demise at Fort Fetterman, and she had to correct me.
Yes.
No, that was Fort Phil Kearny.
Yes, our Fort Fetterman was named after Fetterman, so when he passed away, that Fort Fetterman was the next fort built and named after him. So he, of course, was never at our fort. Fort Fetterman is considered the hardship fort. Nobody wanted to be stationed there, mainly for the weather. It's up on the high plains. It is right on the banks of the Platte River. Beautiful in the summer, but in the winter, it's pretty nasty. There's a book called Dry Bone right here, and anyone who has read this book will see this depicts the winters of Fort Fetterman, which,
Pretty dreary looking cover.
Yes, there's nothing grows there. Even today, we tried to grow some trees out there for shade, and they never make it. So it was called the Hardship Fort. It was built in 67, and then when the Army shut down all the forts, I believe it was 88, 82, 86, I can't remember my exact closure dates of the fort. But it was one of the forts on the Bozeman Trail, and sorry about that.
No, that's all good.
And, the Bozeman Trail was...
Now, there's really not much left there anymore, is that correct?
Out at the fort, we do have an officer's quarters, which is our museum building.
Okay.
And we have an ordnance building that is where it was then. It was renovated,
okay,
should I say, or reconstructed.
So
it's not an original building, per se, the ordnance building, but the museum part is an original.
I was out there many years ago, and it seemed to me like what I remember out there was mostly foundations and placards telling what was where as far as the bakery and the officers'
State archaeology had done vast digs and stuff throughout the decades, and yes, what you see is we have a lot of nice interpretation around the trails through the fort grounds that will tell you where things were, and you can see some of the foundations and the we have a gazebo, of course, that isn't there, but people like to walk out there to see the fort or see the river, and look across the river to where the hog ranches were.
Okay. Okay.
Which that's another story all in itself, is the hog ranches. But being out there,
and we're not talking about people that raised pigs.
No, we're not. We're talking about the seedy little area that, yes, it was there during the fort years, but it was also when the fort closed down, it became Fetterman City, which was kind of a Wild West,
Okay.
no rules apply, kind of gambling, prostitutes, you name it, that went on out there. So the hog ranches were basically the gambling and the naughty parts of Fetterman City, but were the fun parts of Fetterman City.
Their history.
Depending on what you look at, the fun parts of being out there. That was where they thought Douglas, the town, was going to be, but when they built the railroad, they brought it closer to here, and that's why Douglas is where it's at, not out in where Fort Fetterman is.
Okay. Then we went and looked at the POW camp.
Yes.
And I was not aware, I called you because I saw an advertisement that said Camp Douglas, World War II POW camp. And I'm going, I've been to Douglas many times. Not hundreds, but many times. I've been over here to State Fair and driven through on my way to Cheyenne a lot, and I always make a stop. They've got a nice little Mexican restaurant here, and so I've stopped here several times. I had no idea there was a World War II POW camp in Douglas, and this is a European, like German, Italian, prisoner of war camp, not like the Japanese internment camp that we went to at Hart Mountain.
Right.
Which is on another podcast if you're interested in learning about the Japanese internment camp.
Yeah, they were Japanese Americans. These were actual prisoners of war that came from Europe, or most of our prisoners that came to Douglas were from the African theater.
From the African theater?
Yes.
Okay.
So they were caught there and then brought by ship to Romulus, New York, and then by train down to Cheyenne, Fort Warren, and then up here to Douglas. Douglas was the main POW camp in Wyoming, so it was one of the major ones. And then there was 17 satellite camps throughout the state.
And where were these satellite camps? Can you name like maybe 5 of them? I'm just curious because I don't expect you to name all 17. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Well, up in Lovell.
There was one in Lovell.
Yes, they did help pick beets, sugar beets, crop.
And that's not far from Hart Mountain.
Right.
And how many? Do you know how many POWs they had there?
I do not. So they would guards would be able to take some of the prisoners off to these sites from Camp Douglas. They would work there for a few weeks, come back, and then go back and forth.
Really?
All these places. So. Lovell was one. Esterbrook, they did tie hacking up there, and around Douglas, they worked on ranches. Up in Arvada, I believe, they worked on ranches. down in Veteran, Wyoming, towards Torrington.
Okay.
South of Torrington, also helped with picking crops.
So those weren't actual barrack setup camps like what Camp Douglas
No,
was?
it was more like families hosting kind of a thing.
Okay. So we're at war with Nazis, and we are housing them so that they can work our beet fields.
Yes, because
This is interesting.
because all of our boys were overseas fighting in the war. So they actually were instrumental in saving ranchers and farmers and the industry in Wyoming at the time.
This is a whole part of history I have not heard anything
and,
about.
Yeah, did I say yeah, they were up in Du Bois. I mean, they were all over down in Saratoga.
And so they take them for 2-3 weeks or a month or something?
Or so, yeah.
Kind of like the old CCC camps, maybe.
Yep, because down in Ryan Park and Carbon County, I mean,
Right.
so they would do the timber and the logging and all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay, and so
And there's a book called Wyoming World War II POW Camps of Wyoming by Cheryl O'Brien, and she goes through all of the sites that they worked in Wyoming, the 17 satellite areas.
Okay, and how big was Camp Douglas, where they kept everybody before shipping them out to these little satellite projects?
Yes, Camp Douglas at the time was bigger than the town of Douglas. It was, I'm not sure of the acreage right off the top of my hand, but you know where the camp, you went to the camp, so where it is now, that's the officers club. That's the only building still standing. The reason it's still standing is the Oddfellows took it over after the war, and inside all the murals on the walls, every wall is covered by a mural that, you know, 3 POW Italians painted on the walls. So thanks to the Oddfellows, that building is still standing. Otherwise, I think it would have been taken down like the rest of the camp. But anyway, it went from there, and the interstate wasn't here, I-25 wasn't here, so it went clear across the street where all those businesses are, and then almost clear to the river.
And from the pictures I'm seeing, it looked like there was 100 or maybe even 200 barracks.
180 buildings on the site.
So I'm in between. I'm doing
yes,
all right.
Yes, you're pretty good. Yes, so they had their own fire department. You know, they had their own baseball field. They had a lot more freedoms than most prisoner of war, you know, like our guys overseas had. I mean, goodness gracious. A lot of the guys, especially, there was a quote from one Italian that we never had it so good. As being in a prisoner of war camp in America. Of course, the Italians seemed to be more happy to be here than the Germans. They're still, you know, in the realm of Hitler, like we're still, our duty is to him, and you know, so some of them acted up more than any of the Italians did. They even tried to form their own coup, and they had voted in presidents, and you know, tried to that we're going to try and overthrow the U.S. Army men here, but you know, that came to a quick halt once they figured out what some of them were doing. Of course, I think there was 3 or 4 that tried to escape in all the time their prison was open, and they were Germans, and they made it down towards Glendo. When they were captured, they asked if they were still in Wyoming. They thought they were in like Texas or something. They thought they had made it a long way. You know, it's like, nope.
Well, we did a podcast at a military museum. In fact, the podcast just came out 2 weeks ago. At an Arizona military museum, and it was also a German POW camp, and I had known that there were some, but I didn't really know that there was this much POW stuff going on in the United States. But they had an escape also where they dug a tunnel for 175 feet and were while walking around looking for a river, from what I understand, and the river was all dried up because it only flowed for a couple months a year. But you know, yeah, it's a pretty interesting little piece of history, and your building is so cool. Like you said, you have murals all around on the walls, and these are the thing that intrigued me about it, I guess, is that they're all Western scenes, almost like Charles Russell painted them, or something like that, and yet you have Italian POWs describing through picture the
Wyoming life on the cowboy life on the plains.
Yes, as you saw, there were many cowboy scenes. What looks like Old Faithful. There's a scene, and then one of the famous Pony Express scenes that we say that they were inspired by artists such as C.M. Russell.
Okay.
And William Henry Jackson.
Right.
And Thomas Moran, some of the more famous artists of the time, or prior time when Wyoming was first being discovered, basically.
But those pictures would have maybe been on calendars and other things.
So what we believe, there is a C.M. Russell book that I found that had almost the exact, replica, our POW's exact interpretive replica of this C.M. Russell book. So his C.M. Russell's sketches and some of his artwork were formed in a book. I believe it was in 1930 or shortly after C.M. Russell passed away. This compilation of book came into one of his books. So over there we do have, we printed some exact from C.M. Russell's book that we have out on the display underneath or next to the murals, or William Henry Jackson's version versus ours. So we think somewhere there, they must have had a library, saw some C.M. Russell or some other history books that they had their own interpretation of it. So yeah, it was pretty cool though, because none of them have ever seen our West.
I wouldn't have thought so, but they did a fantastic
But Europeans
job.
were also fascinated with the West, even in the 40s,
I guess
in
they would have had
movies,
movies, yeah.
and stuff. And Italians, they had plenty of horses in the Italian countryside. So currently, we never knew anything about any of the artists except for their names. Their first initial, last name is on some of the artwork. This summer, we had an Italian studies professor from California who got a grant to come study those murals. So she came and we went through the camp. She actually called me a few weeks ago. She found one of the artist's brothers still alive.
Really?
He's 95 years old.
Wow.
And so he told her about his brother, and we've got a picture of him. We've got a picture of their family tombstone plot in Italy. I need to still get, it's so fresh, we still need that interpretation over there, but Enzo Tarquinio is the one that she found his brother.
Okay.
And he said that Enzo was a professional painter in Italy. When he came back from the war, he helped restore some of the churches and damaged buildings around Italy. He actually passed away doing some pieces in a church, died of a heart attack. So he literally did art until the day he died.
Wow.
And his brother is a famous illustrator in Italy.
Okay.
So
wow. And these murals are good-sized murals.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Some of
it's
them
not
are
like little paintings. These
Oh, yeah,
are
yeah.
on the walls all over.
Yeah, some of them are at least, I measured them for this Italian studies gal a couple weeks ago. But yeah, some are half the wall. I mean, literally half the wall, probably, I don't know, what, 8 feet?
8 feet tall and
by
10 feet long or
Yeah,
something.
they're pretty big. In the bar area, there's quite a few smaller versions, but again, covers every wall that we have. Pretty much.
And you've also got really nice display cases in there with different artifacts, I guess, from World War II as far as uniforms.
The majority of the wood carvings and other handmade goods or artifacts that you see in there were done by prisoners.
Okay.
Most of them just made them by scraps, and what they used for glue was dried cottage cheese and made it into a paste. And it's a miracle that these things still exist. If you saw some of the wood carvings, they're pretty intricate.
They're very intricate.
So what would happen is they'd befriend these ranchers or farmers they would work for, and they'd make them something as an appreciation of letting them work on there. And, you know, they became friends, and so we got those artifacts by people in Douglas and around Wyoming. Once we became a state historic site, oh yeah, here, have this. And some of them were here at the Pioneer Museum before we got exhibits over there.
Okay.
Just this last winter, we got all the exhibits up that you see now over there. Before it was just the floor was pretty much empty, and we had a few exhibits, but not
well, it's
what
really
you see
nice
now.
It's really nice.
And we there's a prisoner that we know of that came back to Wyoming, married a Cheyenne girl, and raised his family in Cheyenne, and that's Caesar Oriano. And we have an exhibit over there on Caesar. One of his daughters pretty much gave us all the photos she had of him, and he met his wife at Fort Warren when he was waiting. His brother also was a prisoner here, but he came over, or she went back and sponsored him, and he came over and they got married, and they raised their 3 daughters in Cheyenne. The Crown Bar in Cheyenne was one thing he started. It's still there.
Wow.
On Lincoln Way. But yeah, that was one story, and he was quite the fella, and he got captured in Tunisia. And then we have the guard stories. There's a guard that we feature there, Anthony Armetta, and he was from Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, and he was a U.S. Army Guard here at the camp. Before that, he was working on the Alcan Highway up in Alaska.
Okay.
And he met his wife here, a Douglas girl, married her, and they moved back to Maryland and raised their family. But his son comes out once a year and brings us something. So a lot of those artifacts came from Armetta, who was friends with some of these prisoners, and they would give him things. And actually his wife, Bernice, is still alive, and we Skyped with her in September. She's 101 years old.
That's really cool that you still have all these connections.
Yes, and so the more that people know about Camp Douglas, the more we get these stories, and people are interested. They want to bring us their things. So
that is too cool.
And yeah, and I mean, Michael Armetta still brings things from his dad when he's going through their house, and
right,
getting ready to sell it, and it's like, hey, do you have this? You want this? So we have, like his Army uniform is over there. We don't have any of the prisoner war really stuff. I mean,
but
why would they want to save their garb? But we have plenty of photographs of the camp.
You got a nice little display of women's uniforms and then another one of the men's uniforms.
Yes, we kind of made some of it into not just the prisoner of war camp officers club. We brought over some artifacts from the Wyoming Pioneer Memorial Museum that we had of local women that were in the WAC. So more of a military museum.
Right.
So yeah, it's been great. We have letters and things that people keep calling and saying, hey, I have these letters. I just got some this summer from a gal in Chicago. Wow. Whose parents, her father was the doctor out at the hospital at the camp, and her mother was a nurse, not necessarily at the camp. She wasn't paid to be the nurse out there, but she would help him in certain aspects out there. And she had all the letters that her mother and father would write home to their family members from Camp Douglas and describe their time here in Douglas at the camp.
A lot of history.
And so they just sent me all those this last summer. So those will be scanned, and we'll put those in flip books. We have a lot of flip books over there of stuff that we don't want the originals over there, but a lot of Italians, different Italians than the 3 that did the murals, did other drawings that you saw probably in some of the cases, the smaller versions. There were some German artists that also did it. There was one nurse over there. Her name was Bernice. She had her nieces donated all of her scrapbooks of her time over at Camp Douglas. She had love letters from Italian, Germans, and even an American officer who was stationed somewhere else. So Bernice was pretty hot to trot, but we have all those in a flip book, and they would paint drawings of her, and she saved them all. Of course, she married none of the 3 guys that were after her at the camp, but a different fella. So we have these personal stories to go with,
Now, do you have
the heartache of war, but this is more of a personal stories we wanted to bring home to Camp Douglas, that some good did come out of it. It's not all bad.
Do you have a website that people can go to for Camp Douglas? Where maybe are you posting some of these letters or some of these things there? Or are you guys working on
our Facebook page? We tend to post more of the pictures and some of the stories on our Facebook page more than our website. Wyoming State Parks is our website, and you can scroll down to any of our sites. They're all on there. But we also have Facebook pages for all 3 of our sites.
And what are they called?
And that would be...
Sorry.
It's probably Wyoming Pioneer Museum, and then I'd have to double check Camp Douglas, I believe is that one, and then Fort Fetterman, FT Fetterman.
Okay.
I
And
believe
they're all on Facebook.
But you could, you will see our orange shield with all of our logo shield on all of our sites. But yes, we manage all of our social media through here, and I have 1 Instagram page. I don't have 3 Instagram pages, so I do also, but it's for the museums. I post stuff for all 3 sites on that Instagram page as well, which I think is at Wyoming Pioneer Museum.
And one more thing I just want to bring up real quick, because I don't know, I guess people that are interested in World War II know that there was quite a African campaign, but I don't know that that's real common knowledge, and you just made kind of brief statement that these prisoners of war came from the African front.
Yes.
But Hitler was very strong in trying to take over a lot of Africa, northern Africa.
Yes.
And I don't know my history well enough.
World War II was so huge. There's so many theaters, but the African theater is probably the lesser known area. They were captured by Americans, I believe. I'm not sure of the exact circumstances, because we were under the impression that all of them came from that area. However, when the Italian professor talked to Mr. Tarquinio's brother, he said that they were actually captured in southern Italy. His brother was.
Okay.
So we're not, so I'm not 100% sure on if all of them were, but from our vast knowledge of information that's come in over the last 5 years, that's what the majority of them were from that area. But,
but I just wanted to bring that up as far as a little bit more
and
of the history of World War II. And I believe it was like
Mussolini was surrendering at that point, or basically, giving in, or, pleading for America's help. And then, of course, all the Italians were like, oh yeah, we'll go. So, I mean, you can imagine some of the photographs we have of like Caesar Oriano and his brother that were captured over there. We have photographs of them over there. The daughters that's what he had labeled all the photographs as. They're in their African attire, which was like light linens, shorts, and it's so hot over there.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But that was the first we'd ever heard that there was another area that they were captured in from the ones that came here. Of course, there was camps all over America. The prisoner war camps for the Germans and Italians were supposed to be, they were more in the midsection of America because they didn't want them near the ocean or, anywhere that they thought that the Germans could bomb or capture, come to America and get them, or that they could escape or something. So they were built in places like Douglas. At the time, it was like, oh, there was more prisoners, there could be, the Italians came first. I don't know if I mentioned that. And then the Germans came after the Italians left. So they weren't there all together. They came in waves. I think the first wave was only a couple hundred Italians. They got off at the train station, which is just up the street here from the old depot, and they marched down to the camp. So they had to march across the river or the bridge, and a couple mile march down to the camp.
Okay.
So it was a few hundred at a time, not like 3,000 at a time, so they slowly would, I think there was 3,000 at one time, but not
all
at once. And then there was waves of them getting released too once the war was over.
Okay.
And then the Germans came, and then so.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
So now we are at the Pioneer Heritage Museum, right? Did I get that wrong? Memorial Museum.
The Wyoming Pioneer
Okay.
Memorial Museum, which this museum started in the 1920s by the Wyoming Pioneer Association, the cabin out front here. The Wyoming Pioneer Association started actually in the late 1800s when they would gather, and a bunch of old men would gather and talk, about their family heritage and bring like a show and tell. Oh, this is my family's thing. Well, then in and they would come during fair, which Wyoming State Fair started in, I think the first one was in 1905. So these old timers would start coming in 1905 to the fair. Wyoming Pioneer Museum is on the Wyoming State Fairgrounds. We are not associated with the State Fairgrounds. We're parks, they're ag, but we get the pleasure of being on this great fairgrounds. But anyway, the pioneers would meet during the fair, and they started having annual gatherings of pioneers all over Wyoming. They built that cabin in 1927 as their meeting area.
Okay.
And then they started just leaving their their family heirlooms there to show and tell as part of their annual meeting. And then when they outgrew that, they ended up asking if they built this building in 1956. Then they couldn't maintain it, so that's when it wasn't called Wyoming State Parks. Then it was like Wyoming Tourism and Commerce or something like that.
Okay.
They took it over, but that's how it became a Wyoming State historic site.
Okay.
And since 1956, the state has owned this building. The Wyoming Pioneer Association still gathers every year for.
Do they still leave stuff behind?
No, okay, not as much as they used to. I think but they still meet every year at a fair, and they have their annual meeting, except for this past 2020,
Right.
weird 2020, because a lot of the pioneers that come are in their 90s and 80s and 90s. So any younger pioneers out there, they need your membership to keep them going. But anyway, so that we're very thankful for the Wyoming Pioneer Association for getting this museum started. And as you'll see, I don't know if you want to walk around.
Oh, I definitely want to walk around, and I want to see all the things that were left behind by the pioneers.
Oh my gosh, you've got a lot of stuff. We could go days in here, but this gallery, the first gallery you walk into, is the Pioneer Gallery. So yes, a lot of this stuff that you see in this gallery was by pioneers, left by the Pioneer Association, or donated to. Everything in here was a loan or a donation, which we no longer take loans because of long-term loans in the museum are never a good thing.
And the first thing we see when we walk into this is, well, there's glass cases all the way down both sides. And then you've got outer glass cases.
Yes.
And the first displays that we come to are the firearms.
Our firearm collection, which this isn't all of them, but it's a nice portion of our collection. I am not a firearm enthusiast, or I am not well versed in every firearm in here. So, but
I'm seeing a very nice selection of.
When hunters come in here and gun enthusiasts, they're like, oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah, so, you've got a lot of the percussions. You've got some Henrys. You've got
We've
Some
got a lot of
shotguns,
Winchester Sharps.
Sharps,
Are
yeah.
our two main, the biggest collection we have in here. And I don't know if I'll be able to do it this winter, but I've been talking about it for several seasons now. Is I want to make one Winchester and one Sharps, or the ones we have the most of, just because there is a big Winchester fan club and or a Sharps, which those are our two we have the most of, and then the other ones, we'll see.
Okay.
But yeah.
And then the center, coming down the center, you've got several bronzes.
We have a lot of bronzes. Two superintendents ago, she was big in art, and she had a art show here for 20 some years. And so the art and the bronzes were collected in those years. I believe it was the 90s where that mainly happened. The first bronze is, you may notice, it's called Eyeball to Eyeball, and it was actually a sculpture that Chris Ledoux from KC, Wyoming did. A lot of people don't know that he was also an artist. Right. He was, more famous for his rodeoing and his singing, of course, but he was a talented sculptor as
I did not realize that either.
Yes, so this is my favorite one. I don't know why, but so that's why it's right here. Yeah.
We were just in KC.
I hate to be biased, but yes, I am partial to this one. My family being from Buffalo in the KC area. So anyway.
Cool.
Yeah, this one is pretty cool. We did. And
I did not realize that he was an artist.
Yes, he was.
Very talented guy.
Yeah, look at that. It's pretty impressive, actually.
It is.
One, because I have no artistic abilities, and two, like, he was a true rodeo guy. So I guess he got this down better than anybody. I mean, as an artist,
the thing that's interesting about it is that he's riding a bull.
Yeah, and
not
he was a bronc. Yeah,
and he was a bronc rider. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He must have spent a lot of time watching the bull riders while he was waiting to
They
get on the
been up after he was done.
Yeah. So anyway, that is one of our favorite pieces. Most of the artwork you see in here was from Wyoming artists.
Okay.
So.
And then we come to the next glass display, and it looks like the ones coming down the wall are
we now have a social distance routing that we go, which seems people seem to like it because they see everything.
Okay.
We cannot forget the jackalope.
The jackalope.
Our jackalope display.
Now, if anybody does not know what a jackalope is, they're pretty specific to Wyoming. They are usually a jackrabbit that has horns, like deer horns on them. They've been known to puncture car tires when they've been hit. And if you can get a 3-point or a 4-point, you've got a really nice jackalope.
Yeah.
But anyway, the jackalope is a Wyoming favorite, and we all love to see him.
Well, he was invented in Douglas.
Invented?
Oh, yeah.
Invented?
I mean, the first taxidermy of a jackalope was in Douglas by a fellow named Doug Herrick, and his brother Ralph were taxidermists here in Douglas. We are known as the home of the jackalope, thanks to our governor proclaiming it in, it was, I believe, in the 60s. So we are the home of the jackalope, and we're the first one was ever discovered, should we say?
I've got a jackalope license from Fort Fetterman from probably 10 years ago when I visited there.
Yes.
And they
still
were
give
selling
them out.
licenses.
Yeah.
I did not find one in order to bag one and take one home.
Yes, were you here on June 31st? That's the day. That's the only day you can hunt.
Yeah. I think I missed the season by a little bit, but
by a day. So yes, the jackalope, our furry friend here. The Herricks had a good sense of humor. The family still lives here.
Okay.
And these are their mounts. They're Doug and Ralph Herrick's mounts. Not the original. No, I don't think anyone knows where the very first one went. It went to the Labonte Hotel at one point. After that, we don't know. But anyway, the Herricks are the people that created it and had the sense of humor. And apparently when they did it, they were like, it's a jackadeer. And one of their wives was like, no, that doesn't sound right. What about jackalope? And apparently that's how the name got started.
Cool.
Since they're deer horns and not antelope horns.
Right, exactly.
So 4 years ago when I got here, it was kind of like how you see some of these more of a curio cabinets. What we decided to do was we were going to do Wyoming history on these side cases throughout the Pioneer Gallery. So we start with the cattle industry and the cattle war, which was a big part of Wyoming's early history. And so we spent a lot of time doing that, which a lot of Douglas people were involved in the Johnson County Cattle War, believe it or not.
On the invader side or on the?
Either one. They were more on the homesteader side. What happened was Frank Wolcott and his Texans were coming through Douglas on the train, but Senator Carey had the Carey Hurst Ranch and the CY Ranch. Carey Hurst Ranch is in Converse County. CY is in, of course, was in Natrona County. And apparently the instructions were given to cut the wires at Carey Hurst. So nobody could telegram ahead, that there's trouble coming. So there was some people involved in that. Also, there was some people, we have allegedly one of Nate Champion's rifles that was confiscated after the invaders came or were rescued by the army. Supposedly he grabbed it out of one of the wagons. His name was Lee Moore, and he had a bounty on him from the invaders. And he was from Converse County and eventually owned the Ogallala Ranch, which W.C. Irvine owned at the time. So that's kind of the Douglas connection. A lot of other guys were gathering actually in town to go help the homesteaders up in Johnson County because they were ready for war.
We've covered a little bit of the Johnson County War at the Jim Gatchell Museum.
Of course. That's
and also at the KC Museum.
Yes, then that's the home of where everything went down. So we just wanted to give people that came down here, because we are the Wyoming Pioneer Museum, so we have to give kind of a broader look at all of history here.
And you've got a lot of stuff here on the
Yeah,
Johnson
when
County
I got
War.
here, there was like one,
Really?
2x2 description of the Johnson County War. So it is one of our most infamous, people know this more, I think, in Wyoming history than a lot of things.
Right.
Out-of-staters, I should say.
Right.
But we do get a lot of people that read all of this and are like amazed that this happened at all in America.
Well, but this is
at
just...
this time in American history, this went on clear into the 1900s with and then we cover the Spring Creek raid,
Okay,
the
that
sheep
was
murders.
over by Tensleep, Wyoming.
Yes.
And that was probably one of the last cattleman-sheepman conflicts.
Yes, and where someone was killed over it. We like to say here, they probably still fight a little, but they do it with lawyers instead of firearms.
There wasn't someone killed. There was, 5 or 6 people
there
killed.
Was a couple sheep herders. Alamend was killed. He was one of the main guys on the sheep. And I think one of his, might have been 2 or 3 of the guys, but some of his guys, 2 of his guys left town because they were, this one guy here, Pete Caffarel, he went back to France. He was like, I'm done, I'm out. And you would if you escaped a burning sheep wagon in the middle of the night. So yeah, this was one of the last incidents where there was a killing. Of course, the guys really didn't get much time at all.
They ended up in the Basin
Yeah.
Bighorn County Jail, which and this all took place.
Herbrink was the one that got the most time, but he was a shady character, that guy.
But this all took place in the Bighorn Basin part of
Yes.
Wyoming, which is on the east side or west side of the Bighorn Mountains, right?
Yes. Beautiful part of the country.
Yeah, that Ten Sleep country.
Tin Sleep is so gorgeous.
Country.
So when you drive through Little Tin Sleep, imagine this happening out.
It's about 5 miles out.
Yeah.
Of Ten Sleep.
Yeah.
I've been.
Would
They
it be
do have
like
a
on the
marker at
Knollwood
the site.
area
Yeah.
part of it?
Yeah.
I think some of them, but yeah. So that happened, and so it was important to cover that as far as the wars go. Of course, we have a Basque exhibit with sheep, with cattle. You have to have the sheep guys too, which we have a lot of Basque population in Wyoming. Buffalo being one of the main ones, Rock Springs. We do have several Basque families here in Douglas as well. So
And they
covering
were
the Basque.
big into the sheep end of things.
Yes, and they still are.
And
they
the Basque-
the Basques were never into cattle, and most of the Basques are still into the sheep. And of course, sheep wagons are a big thing in Wyoming.
And when we talk about Basque, they're a group of people that live kind of on the border of France and Spain.
Yes, in the
And they're
Himalayan
they're their
region of
own-
France and
They're
Spain.
their own.
And they speak their own language. I mean, it's unlike any language.
I think
could
the
ever
genetics
hear.
are a little bit different
Yes,
too,
they
from what I
are
understand.
as closely related to the Cro-Magnon that anybody in. Yeah, they have a very rare blood type also, and I go into that in here.
I had a really good
I
friend
have-
that was Basque, a wonderful guy.
Yes, my dad's cousins are Basque, so they're here, and so they're Basque, and so part of the. I grew up with Basque cousins, second cousins, and whatnot. So, yeah.
I'd say that
And
was
they
really
still are.
cool. 'Cause
They're still
I-
sheep ranchers and still going in Buffalo. There's a Bass Festival every 5 to 6 years in Wyoming, and it's usually hosted in Buffalo.
And coming down your center
Yes.
cases, you've got several military
Yes,
displays.
we've got a World War I, World War II, which most of our World War II stuff went over to Camp Douglas. And pretty much everything in here is from a Wyoming person.
Okay.
Wyoming person that served in World War I, World War II. We've got everything, as you can see here. We've got the cattle industry with the brands. We've got so many brands. I could switch one out every day of the month.
Wow.
I'd like to do a better informed cattle brand exhibit. So this is all still a work in progress. When I got here, things had not been changed in 30 years, is what
Okay.
I was told. And so that's not good for artifacts at all.
No.
So we have our storage facilities are bursting at the seams as well. So we have been going through that the last 5 years. And we are, as you see, in the process of new exhibits. Most of this was done last year. So things are changing here at the Pioneer Museum. So we want people to come and see new old things.
Yeah, I'm looking at a Civil War
Yes.
display case that I'm standing here with my mouth about half agape.
Yeah,
because
we have.
This is just really neat. You've got swords, you've got medals, you've got some books, and I'm really wanting to see this Book of Rebellion, the history of the Civil War, published in 1888. It's got to have a little bit different perspective than what we've been told, and it'd be really interesting to see what that perspective is.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've
Wow.
changed some things out in some of these middle cases, thinned some stuff out because, as you see, it's very overwhelming to some people to come in here. You could spend days here.
Easily.
I've been here almost 5 years, and some days I'm walking through here and I'll have to stop and go, what is that? Oh my, I see something new almost every week that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to look into that. So as a curator, it's been a joy and kind of a what should we do next kind of a thing. So there's never a dull moment here. And as you can see, if I go on to Wyoming History, I could change this out every other year and
Yeah, you've got
because we have
lots of
plenty
bits.
and plenty and plenty of stories in Wyoming that aren't covered in Wyoming History in Douglas, but we hope to do that in the near future.
In these displays, you've got bits and spurs, you've got gloves, woolly gloves.
Yep.
I mean, just all kinds of
Just
things.
all the gear a cowboy would use. An
Definitely.
authentic
Chaps.
cowboy. Yes, we've got ropes made by prisoners down at the territorial prison,
Okay.
which is another
they
state
horsehair?
historical. Yep, they are
Okay.
horsehair.
Yep.
And these are all horsehair, and they're beautiful colors.
Bridles?
And yes,
Yeah.
and so
Oh, and look at the colors. Are those are beads? Some of them are beads. Like up here.
yeah, there's a little. I don't know if those are.
But a lot of
yeah,
it is dyed hair.
dyed hair.
Wow.
And these came from this one, like done while they were down in the territorial prison,
In
which
1899.
Yeah,
it
Wyoming
says.
Territorial Prison is also a state historic site, so.
And we're
it is-
hoping to hit that
Oh,
at some point
it's
in
a
time.
cool, it's a cool play. That's the thing with state historic sites is we're all so different, and that is definitely a different one. Like, oh yeah.
Okay.
They have some ghost tours that I'd love to go on one of these days.
We actually were going through Deer Lodge, Montana, and did the territorial prison there. And they have ghost tours that you can go on. They
Yeah.
lock you in at 8 o'clock at night, and you get back out at 4 o'clock in
Oh
the
yeah,
morning.
territorial
And
prison.
they say that they're pretty wild.
Yeah, territorial prison did some this year. I don't know if they, what all they did, but I want to do that one of these days.
And I have been through Rawlins 1,000 times, and I've stopped at the prison probably 30 times, and they are never open when I'm there.
Yeah, I don't know about
It's
that
the
one.
most frustrating thing. I'm either there too late, too early, or they're closed at lunch, or I don't really know why I
Yeah.
have not been able to hit it. But
Well-
my timing has always been, well, last year we were stuck in Rawlins all day long because interstate was closed.
Oh, yeah,
And I
that's
went
good.
there, and of course they were closed
Yeah,
on a
you got to
snow
get
day.
stuck in Laramie and go to the territorial prison. So yeah, we have train history, which the Railroad Museum here in Douglas. Most of their pictures came from our collection over at the Railroad Museum. So we didn't go
Okay.
too much into the railroads here because they do a fine job over there. And they have the cars to show you.
Right.
The cars are that you can go through, I think.
Now, you
most-
were talking
most of
about
the
the
year.
Territorial Museum in Laramie?
Yeah, the Wyoming Territorial Prison.
Okay, I was thinking of the
No,
prison in
that's the
Rawlins.
Frontier Prison.
Okay, now I haven't been through
the
Laramie
territorial-
nearly as much. so-
Territorial Prison was the original prison in
Okay.
Wyoming. So it was a prison during the Wyoming Territory days. So people like Butch Cassidy were there.
Okay.
And some
And
other
I was
shady
thinking that Rawlins
cockeyed
was
characters.
was
No,
that
no,
one.
no. That
I'm
came
learning
out.
some
That
Wyoming
came
history
after
here.
that one came after the Territorial Prison closed.
Okay. Well,
And
so
so
I
it was in
stand
Laramie.
corrected
Yes.
with all of my statements that I was making.
Yeah, that's why I said get stuck in Laramie, not
Get
Rollins.
stuck in Laramie.
Well, you could get
Well, that
stuck in Rollins too.
Rawlins
It's a
facility
cool
looks
one.
like it'd be really cool
It is.
too,
I've been
but-
through there before too, and they do a fine job as well. So we just have a lot of stuff that was donated by original pioneers of Douglas. So clocks,
Clocks.
and
Family
yeah, we do
albums,
family albums,
photo albums
yeah.
and stuff.
So some of this stuff will be going into our library, so people can call and go through, for an appointment to
Right.
go through it, rather than it just sitting here and nobody can look at it.
A nice display of the old cameras.
Yes, we have a nice, we used to have the Platte River photo show here, and so I would do a bigger camera display during that. It outgrew our facility, so now and you'll see it in our next gallery, it's held at a different facility, and then we just have the winners of the Platte River photo contest
Okay.
on loan all of their photographs for a year, and you'll see it in the next gallery. But yes, we have so many saddles, we don't even have enough storage space for them. So in between all the glass cases, you see saddles of various individuals from Wyoming,
Old typewriters.
old typewriters.
Old
we have
musical
we
instruments.
like
I don't
to say-
think I mentioned the
Yes.
musical instrument case on the other side, and then you've got some in this case also.
Yeah, we've got the music instruments are. I had a gal from Denver. her great-great-grandmother's violin is in here. So she wanted a picture. So, you know, we still get calls all the time that people are finding that they have stuff from relatives that are in our museum. So we have a veterinarian exhibit here. One of their pioneers' family was a family of veterinarians.
A blood transfusion set for direct transfusion of blood from one animal to another by use of a syringe as a pump. Now that...
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, some of this veterinary stuff
I used to
is
want
really
to be a
cool.
veterinarian when I was a kid. I don't know about that.
Times may have
Although
changed a little bit. Oh, now what is this? This is interesting. It looks like it's a pharmacy, and there's a little burner that has a wire that comes on up and holds a spoon over like a teaspoon over the top of the burner. I think my mom would have liked that for putting hot oil in my ears when I said I had an earache.
Yeah, so
Wow.
I think it's the druggists use different ways to measure. Yeah, we have everything from
There is some
eyeglass
really neat
stuff,
here.
to pharmaceutical, early pharmacy mortars, and just old bottles of medicine, which, you know, different medicines back then they had all kinds of elixirs
Right.
back then.
Well,
of
and the
stuff that
pharmacist...
we would never, you know, cocaine-based things, and, you know, other things we would never use today, arsenic-based, you know.
Right. Mercury.
Mercury, yeah. So we have some of these old boxes of and old bottles from
Yeah, that's a really
pharmaceutical
nice display,
days.
too.
Again, Jim Gatchell in Buffalo has, of course, he was a pharmacist, so they have tons of that stuff. But yeah, we had every little town had their own pharmacist. So.
Right, and the pharmacists mixed the drugs at that point
Yes,
in time. They weren't.
yes.
They didn't just pick them up from.
Right, and they, like, if you needed poison to kill rodents in your yard, you could go to the pharmacy and get
Oh, he did that
poison
too.
control. Yeah, they were your poison
Wow.
people. So yes, we have a heck reel. Another one of the last Indian wars here in Converse County. We have a little display on that. It's called the Lightning Creek Battle, 1903.
You've got old knives in here. You've got bones. You've got shells.
Tons of shells from various
rifle
areas.
shells,
Yes.
yeah.
We have
Some old
from
glasses
Yep.
found along the Oregon Trail. Wow,
Yeah, we've got.
this is just really
So these
fascinating.
exhibits that you see here that are coming soon. We've got our Fort Fetterman. Since people confuse us with Fort Phil Kearny and the
Right.
that'll go here. Fort Fetterman, or the Fetterman Battle will go here. We're getting some Pony Express and Oregon Mormon and California Trails exhibits coming in, and then Wyoming Firsts, Wyoming Women Firsts coming in this area. So we'll be changing out some of this stuff we've got, or moving it to another place in the museum.
Okay, and you got a surveyor's
Chains.
cabinet. This looks like some electrical
Yep, some insulators.
insulators and
We've got tons of
picks
insulators.
and all kinds of stuff here. An army helmet found on the Oregon Trail. Now, what era would have that been? Because, I mean, the Oregon Trail was 1840. That's pre-Civil War, but
Yeah, I'm not sure about
somebody
that one.
may have lost that out of their pickup truck.
Yeah,
It looks like a World War I type
it does
helmet.
look like one, partial. We've got a lot of stuff that was found out at Fort Fetterman. And out at Fort Fetterman, we have a whole case full of stuff that that visitors, even though you're not supposed to pick up anything and take
Right.
it off of our site, they do, and they'll bring it to our employees out there and say, look what I found. So we do have a case of fragments and found items out at the fort still, but we have some here in town as well.
Okay.
Sir Barton, he was the first Triple Crown winner in the country, and he is buried here in Douglas, Wyoming.
Now, he was a jockey?
No, he's the horse.
Oh, he's the horse. Okay, sorry, sir. I didn't mean to insult
Sir
you.
Barton, how dare you? So last
It
year,
says Sir Barton Racing Silks, and it looks like a coat to me.
well, yeah. No. So this horse last year was the 100th year anniversary of his Triple Crown wins, and he was buried here in Douglas. He was brought here by Dr. Hilton, and after he retired from racing, Sir Barton, he went to a farm in Virginia for studying, and then he was sent to the scouting for its as a scout horse.
Okay.
And so Dr. Hilton had seen him and purchased him, and basically Sir Barton retired here in Douglas.
Okay.
The one thing I do not have is a picture of Sir Barton in Douglas on the ranch.
Okay.
So I
Well,
did.
now I'm going to really
Yeah,
tell on myself. The only real horse I know in Wyoming is Steamboat.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, he came way before. He probably came before Sir Barton. But Sir Barton, he won in 1919, all three. He actually won 4 in a row, but
Wow.
he won the big 3. It wasn't considered the Triple Crown at the time, but they did go back and recognize him as the first. I got a Kentucky gal came in, and she was a librarian in Lexington, and she could not believe we had this here. She was floored. She didn't know Sir Barton lived or was buried here. She drives down Sir Barton Way every day of her life, and so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean the connection to Kentucky, we get it here.
That's cool.
I had to call the Churchill Downs Museum to get some of these photos, and they were very gracious and let us use them. And they were so curious that they asked me if I'd go take a picture of his gravesite, and so I did. We have his first headstone here, as you
Right.
see, which you can barely see.
You can barely see any
But
of it.
he was dug up and then transferred to Washington Park, where there is a huge statue on
Right
top
here
of
in
where
Douglas.
he is buried. Yes, so Sir
Wow.
Barton is up at Washington Park.
Okay, now what's going on with this display case?
Oh,
We've got stuff in here from
Yeah.
the Spanish-American
Yeah.
War and from the Philippine Insurrection.
yep. It's just another cabinet full of items donated from people.
So it didn't
In-
really have
from
a
Wyoming.
Wyoming connection,
Well,
other than people from Wyoming have it.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. We have a lot of that, or a lot of it is, alleged stuff
Okay.
that we're still, working out. Like, okay, because we do have allegedly Tom Horn's saddle down at the very end, another
Okay.
character in Wyoming history. They advertised it as Tom Horn's saddle for decades, and I've looked at the records, and nobody has actual authenticity on that saddle. It could be, but we've done some research, and we're not sure.
Not sure.
So that's why we say allegedly. So then here's our beautiful cardboard cutout of Sir Barton.
Okay.
Douglas had a big party for his 100th anniversary of
Well,
winning the
that's cool.
Triple Crown. There was a movie made also, and that premiered here. It wasn't.
I should have seen the movie before I came.
It wasn't all about Sir Barton, but it was about the people, the history of the guy who owned him at the time.
Okay.
A racing family.
And now we're entering another gallery.
This is the Fink Gallery. As you see, it's a little fancier. We've got this is kind of women's wedding dresses at the moment. It just had women's fashion before, and we took it down, and we decided we had all these beautiful wedding dresses in storage, so we decided last year to do it as a wedding dress themed area and cocktail attire.
I was going to say you've got lots of dishes and
we have, yes, lots of china. We have
China.
some kid toys. We have dolls. We
a
have
very nice doll collection there in
women's
the back.
accessories like combs and purses and fans. We have a fan collection that a gal, Pioneer here, collected hand fans. Here you see on the walls some of our artwork from what used to be was acquired in the art shows that our predecessor used to have here at the museum. And then all the photographs are from the North Platte River photo show that is annual here in Douglas. And so these are all the winners that had agreed to loan them to us for the year.
Cool.
So coming up, I believe January, February. Last year they had it in February. There'll be the next round of North Platte River
and how often
people.
do you change out your displays? Like in this, I'm assuming this is going to continue to be
yeah, this
female
like I said,
oriented room because that's what it was before.
It was what it was before. None of the stuff that was in here before had been taken off display for 30 years. We had fluorescent lights for that long, so a lot of those dresses are unfortunately damaged to and repair that we took off display. We now have LED lights, and you see motion censored, so it cuts down on the time that these artifacts are in the light. So we would like to change them out every 1 to 2 years. Women's clothing is what was collected the most. We don't have a lot of men's clothing that is displayable. So we have tons and tons of women's items. So we'll probably change it out. My next one, I think I want to do a fashion in furs, because we have a lot of furs.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yes, so we have tons of furs, which, you know, to PETA, it's not PC, but back then that's the only way they could stay warm in this kind of climate, you know? And so we have a ton of stuff. And so that'll probably be my next display in here is the fur fashion, which we have.
I don't care what PETA says.
Oh, I don't
Furs
either.
are classic.
I don't either, but you know.
you know, it's just one of those things that.
And we went through a freezing process last year. We went through all of our furs and froze them so we could see if there was bugs. And it does help the artifacts kill the bugs, and then it helps in a way your unexpected conditions them a little bit. So
really,
they're ready to go and be on display. I just have to figure out my course of action on that.
yeah,
And
it's amazing
the wedding
what they
dresses,
did for with furs. For
oh my gosh,
hundreds of years,
yeah, like
thousands of years.
I'm going to do a Portuguese John Phillips exhibit too. We have his allegedly have his fur mittens that he
Really?
wore. So we will do that. So
we had a discussion about Portuguese Phillips at the Jim Gatchell Museum, because I always thought that man had to have been like the toughest guy ever born.
Well,
and then she kind of discounted some of that for me.
He's probably tough enough, but he didn't do it by himself.
No, that's the illusion I always lived under. Is and what we're talking about here, just for people that haven't heard the Jim Gatchell, after the Fetterman massacre that happened at Fort Phil Kearny, he took off and made a trek to Cheyenne.
Or to Fort Laramie.
To Fort Laramie, okay.
Which was about 236 miles from, I believe, or was it 136? No, it was 236. But it was quite a trek on horseback in the middle of winter, like
with Indians hot on his trail.
December 26th. So he left in the dark.
Right. And cold. It
and
had
the cold.
to have been
And
about the coldest part of the year.
He walked his horse for a good portion of the trip because he was afraid if he got on horseback, he would be seen by the Indians. So he did leave with somebody from Fort Phil Kearny. And he, from what we know, he rode to Fort Reno with somebody. So he didn't go the entire way by himself. But either way, I wouldn't want to be riding my horse in December 22nd through December 25th or whatever it was to, in a blizzard like you saw on that cover of the Dry Bone book. Yeah, that's what I'm just imagining, just, a whiteout situation as we find in Wyoming during that time of year.
He did it in a remarkable amount of time.
Yes.
It was like 3 days or 4 days.
Yeah, it wasn't 24 hours like they said. There's no way that he could have done that. That would have been remarkable. But it was like 3 to 4 days. He made it to Fort Laramie. I believe it was Christmas Eve, and they were having a big gala party for Christmas Eve. And he showed up. The horse collapsed and died, and he was in the infirmary for quite a few days. But he made it.
Yeah. And was able to report on the the incidents at Fort Fetterman.
Yes, he boasted, and he liked his status of being the hero.
Yeah.
And he played on that the rest of his life. But I would probably too if I was him.
I was going to say,
I mean, he
no
had a
matter
lot,
how you cut it, the guy did it.
to me, he had a lot to brag about. Or, I don't know. I couldn't have done it, but yeah, we just have a lot of wedding dresses starting in 1897, clear to the 1950s.
Very nicely displayed
everything
inside of glass cases and on full-size mannequins.
Yes.
No heads. We don't have
No
any.
heads.
No
When
pretty faces to look at.
All the
but
old mannequins, we were taking off stuff on chicken wire, and oh my gosh, as a curator, you're just like mortified that they were on those things for 30 years. But yes, these are all now museum sound mannequins, and all these ladies were from the Wyoming, mainly Douglas, Glen Rock area. And so I had a 93-year-old lady come and see all her friends, these people's wedding dresses, these ladies' wedding dresses, and she's like, well, I have mine. And so that's how I got another one. And and this lady here had dementia, and her family brought her in, and she noticed she recognized her picture, and she says, I was pretty, wasn't I? And I'm just like, waterworks. Oh my God, this is the reason we do this, is for people's reactions. We're in it for the education and, of course, the human
connection.
effect,
Yeah.
human connection, yes. So yeah, we do have a men's thing. We have hats. We have Del Burke. She was a famous Madam in Lusk. We have her undergarments.
Oh.
We have, we've got everything. We have a little of everything if you are interested in anything. And then this is our research library, which we just remodeled 2 winters ago. And
very nice room.
yes, at the moment, we don't have anything in a database in here. We're hoping to get that going. It could take us years and years, but you can call us and tell us what you're interested in. If we have something, and we will get it out, and you can look at it. And
you were stating you're having some internet problems as far as you're in a cinder block building, and
yeah,
you
we're
can't
trying to get
internet to all the different
yeah. So
places.
once I get all that in here, then and all this stuff in a database, and we'll try and make it researchable for everybody. But as of now, we will do the searching for you.
Wow.
So
we just stepped into.
This is called our bar area, our bar gallery. So we've got a Wurlitzer jukebox, we've got a player piano. Of course,
When she says she's got a Wurlitzer jukebox, she's talking wood carved, made out of, it looks like oak or
yeah, this one is
maple.
a 4142 Wurlitzer.
1941 or 42. I've never seen. I kind of like jukeboxes.
I do
the
too.
Old
I love
style
them.
ones. I've never seen one like this. Of course, it's going to play the '78 records. The old stuff.
Said it cost 25 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, 25 cents to play
Your songs.
Your songs. We've got this player piano.
Player piano, roulette table.
Yep, we've got some gambling tables here. They came from the Guernsey area. This is the original bar that was at the Levante Hotel.
Okay.
And it came here to the museum, I believe, in '69. They built this little area, or obviously around the
Right.
because you couldn't have
And it's
gotten
a
in.
beautiful bar.
Yep.
And you've got some massive cash registers.
Yes.
Those things are gorgeous.
This was built in England and then shipped over here. So this is.
It's a beautiful bar.
Yeah, it is very nice. And so a lot of people from Douglas actually have drank at this bar when it was at the Levante Hotel through the 60s. It was over there, in there.
Now, do you have museum parties where they can still come and have
They
something
used
every
to,
once
but
in a while?
no, we don't.
I was gonna
Because
say, I
this
think-
is an artifact, but they used to have, I guess, ragers here before the art show. You lube people up and then they buy art,
Okay.
But I guess they used to have quite the parties. And then now we are walking into the Fran Johnson Memorial Gallery. Fran Johnson was a lady who loved Wyoming. She was born here. Her father owned a sheep ranch in the Lander Riverton area, and then they moved to Denver. She never really was raised here, but she always had a love for Wyoming. So she donated 90% of this collection is hers, and she donated it and gave the money to build this room
Wow.
basically for it. However, when they took on this collection in the early 90s, it was with the contingency that we would never take it off display, which is terrible for artifacts to never be able to take them off display. She is deceased, and so are all of her heirs. So we've been in contact with the estate attorney about whether or not we can take them off to rest them.
But again, you've got the auto dimming lights and,
Yes,
and that
so
type of stuff.
it's getting a little better. A lot of these artifacts are not Wyoming. They're South American native tribes. We have the things you see that are archaeological are from Wyoming. The arrowheads, the mammoth leg bone.
Okay. We've got a lot of old American North and South items in here. You know, as far as
we call this instead
points.
of Fran Johnson Gallery. Mainly, we call this our Native American room because that is 95% of what is in here is a Native American base and or our natural history type of stuff, which is our archaeological artifacts.
And just lots of really neat
Yeah.
stuff. You've got
Because we have this mammoth bone here, and we have a mammoth dig going on just almost across the highway from Fort Fetterman. The state archaeologist's office has been doing a mammoth dig out there that they found, and so we have had them come test one of the bones here to see if it was any relation. We have not heard back yet. So, yeah.
You've got a lot of beadwork on moccasins.
Yes, the Native American beadwork is fantastic, as always, but the majority of this stuff is not. We do have some Arapaho and Shoshone, but the majority of it is not. Like the pottery is not. Everything on this side is not Wyoming related.
You've got some.
But you can see the gist of it because it is Crow and at least regional.
Right.
But this side is more south because you've got the Pueblo and you've got the Hopi, and the other Native American artifacts. It's gorgeous.
Okay. Now,
but it is not.
I'm gonna bring
it's not
up
Wyoming
something.
Pioneer related.
I'm going to bring up something that's going to get me in all kinds of trouble here. How is it that we can look at the artwork that is being done by these Native Americans? I mean, the beautiful beadwork, the beautiful painting, the beautiful pottery, the beautiful artwork that is being done, and then go to some place like Legend Rock or a petroglyph and see an elk that looks like a ball with horns coming out of it and say that that is some sort of religious significance. The only thing I can really say is, were there some little kids up there drawing pictures? Because this stuff is just so intricate, so well designed. And then you have the rock carvings that look like, maybe you can explain this, or maybe I just put a twist in your brain.
It's much harder to carve on a rock formation than maybe it is to weave a basket. And maybe most of the men perhaps were carving on the walls. I don't know. Maybe the women were more artistic. I don't know.
It's just something that's bothered me my whole life. I go to and don't get me wrong, I love petroglyphs.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see some.
'em.
I mean, of course, these are probably more modern
Right.
era paintings than, you know, they weren't painting paint. You know, they were doing petroglyphs. But the women were doing basket weaving. They were creating their steelite bowls. You know, they were doing what they could. Now this stuff is more modern, of course, than the.
Yeah, but you can
But
go
then
to
the
you can go to
era.
those places down in New
Yes.
Mexico, and you
Yes.
can see the pottery and some of that.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
so
This
intricately
stuff-
designed.
This stuff was definitely, that you see, the older stuff,
Right.
the crack stuff, was definitely the Pueblo do it in their works.
Right.
And I can't answer your question.
I can't either. It's just
But-
something that's always bothered me.
But yeah,
because-
but they're you know, all of their basket weaving and their just even their
They're cloth
creation of
weavings,
steel,
everything.
yeah, steelite bowls and whatnot. And this area, we just have a lot of, well, we have this teepee, which came from the set of Dances with Wolves
Oh, really?
So this is a main attraction, even though Dances with Wolves wasn't even set in Wyoming. So, but
Hey.
it gives you the this is a Plains, typical Plains Indian teepee.
And
Anyway.
is this one made out of hide?
It is cow.
It is
Because you
cow,
can
okay.
see inside,
Yeah.
you could see some of the brands on. I don't mean to be,
No.
But we can't, we just kind of,
And then
it
you've
is
got a
what it
very
is.
nice wagon display
Yes,
back here with,
we can
with
come back here.
several doctor's types buggies is what they
Yeah,
call
this
them.
is
The little two-seaters.
yep, 2-seaters. We've got a fancy 4-seater over here.
You got a sheep wagon.
The sheep wagon, of course, Florence Hardware in Douglas was one of the first, if not the first, sheep wagon makers in Wyoming.
Oh, really?
Yes, so.
I did not realize that. Sheep wagons are just cool.
Yes, so I'm
The
not
first RVs.
Yes, yes, we have a essay competition for 4th graders every year, and a lot of them, and they can pick an artifact to write about in the museum, fictional or factual, and we've had many of RV trips down the road with the family and the sheep wagon stories
Well, that's
from
cool.
these 4th grade kids. So,
Yeah, very nice display of saddles and wagons
yes,
and buggies.
this wagon. I'm not that versed in wagons, but except for sheep wagons. But this wagon, this old military wagon, apparently is sought after by wagon enthusiasts. It's one of the most intact original pieces wagon in this country. I have had wagon enthusiasts down in Texas who rebuilds these as a hobby, and he called me last winter and was like, I need pictures. He reminded me of the accent of Yosemite Sam, and I need pictures. So I'm like under the wagon taking pictures for him, sending him all these pictures, and he's so I had no idea until he called me that this was an awesome wagon.
It is.
We think it is, but I didn't know the history behind. Like this was the most intact original parts on
Wow.
one of these in the country. One of the few that's still intact, original pieces.
Right.
So, yeah, when I started taking pictures of it for him, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And he claims he's going to come up here one of these days and see it in person. So this is a hearth oven. It is believed, my predecessor used to call it the crock pot of Native Americans. They believed they cooked food in here. What I have read, it was more for shaping bowls.
Okay. Like a kiln.
Like a kiln.
Okay.
Yeah, for pottery and stuff. Because, all these steelite bowls, they would make them, and then because they were nomadic, they would just leave them.
Okay.
And then, but this came from one of the Thunder Basin mine, I believe, and they dug it up and then brought it here.
And what
for
we're
us to
looking at
see.
is a cut in half version of this stove that's probably 3 foot by 3 foot high, and then the walls on it are close to a foot thick, all made of mud or earth. And it's a cutaway, like I said, and it's just really, really interesting.
Yeah. So that.
This got a glass front on it so that it doesn't deteriorate. I'm
Yes,
assuming,
yes, because
it'd want to
we
cave
would have
apart.
people picking at it, and so I'd come back here every night to shut lights off, and it'd be down on the ground. So we did finally get some.
Put it in a case.
Yeah, and even though it's on wheels, it is a bearcat to move.
I'll bet it's really
It's just-
heavy.
it's where it is right now, forever probably. But yeah, so we have other Native American items, war clubs. We have clothing, beaded clothing, mainly ceremonial type Native American textiles.
Just a beautiful
And a lot of this,
display of points and
Guernsey
stuff,
State
too.
Park also has a museum made by the CCC, and I am in charge of that museum too. So some of our other Native American stuff's down there.
In Guernsey?
Yes, Guernsey State Park.
How far is Guernsey from here?
It's about an hour and a half.
I was going to say, it's quite a ways, which again is right close
But
to...
they're it's close to the wagon ruts.
And it's also close
and
to
to
Register Cliffs
Cliff.
and to Fort Laramie.
Right.
Which is where a lot of the treaties and stuff were
Right.
written. And
Right. And so
some of
Guernsey
that.
State Park, the CCC built in the 30s a lot of structures at the park, including this museum.
Okay.
And so it's seasonal. So we have displays in that museum as well, and the stuff that we loan them during the summer season, we bring back in the winter. So
Okay.
we have some Native American stuff, and a lot of it is kind of Bureau of Reclamation stuff and the history of Guernsey State Park and the reservoir there.
Okay. And Guernsey's where the National Guard headquarters is.
Yes.
And
yes.
so, yeah, I've been to Guernsey a couple different times. Never have been to the museum there.
Yeah,
I may have to
at
change
the state
that.
on the state park in the by the lake, Guernsey State Park.
Okay.
The lake recreation. So now we go downstairs.
Oh, we got it downstairs too.
Yes.
Now
These,
that's a pair of coveralls.
yes. See
I'm
those?
looking at a pair of coveralls that are probably for a man that's about 5'8",
Well,
and these things are 3 feet wide.
if you turn around, you'll see the guy that owned those overalls.
Oh, that poor horse.
Charlie Irwin, and he was approximately nearly 500 pounds. And these are
Wow.
his overalls. And what I want to do, we're going to take these out this winter, and we're going to make a mannequin. We'll show you the size of Charlie Irwin.
Are you going to put him on Sir Barton?
Oh, I could. Thank you for the idea. Yes. I'll put him on our cardboard cutout of Sir Barton for effect.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone there.
Actually, it's a good idea. But anyway, and because the kids get the most, I mean, they also write about the overalls a lot.
Well, but that picture, that horse was not a draft horse.
No, poor thing.
Holy smokes.
So this is our downstairs area. We call this the tool room, tool gallery. But you see there's a lot of everything in here.
There is.
Everything else. We've got model cars too, fossils. A lot of this stuff should be up in the Native American gallery, but we just, we run out of room, even though this building is almost 16,000 square feet. So this direction, we have a lot of equipment, old wash machines. We have for little kids when they come in here, because it is so overwhelming, we give them a scavenger hunt.
Okay.
And so we have some clues in each gallery, and one of them is, the washing machine. This is your mom washes your clothes, and would have washed your clothes in this back in the day. And yeah.
Old irons.
Yeah, tons of irons, tons of saddle making equipment. This is an incubator. I've had farmers go ballistic. Like I didn't grow up 4-H'ing and farming, so I'm like, this guy was so enthralled with this, and
But most people are used to these little incubators that you buy from,
and so
from the
he
little
was
store.
gonna.
This thing's 3.5 feet by 3.5 feet.
It had 200 chick capacity.
Whoa.
And so
it's all made out of wood.
Yeah. So he taught me, I was like, really? What are you talking about? So we have people still teaching me things all the time about all this equipment. He was going to bring his dad here. He couldn't even believe something like this existed. So we have
separator.
We have old plows and wells and wheelbarrows, and we're going to redo the mining section this winter.
Old grindstones.
Yes. See, Florence Lumber, that was part of Florence Hardware.
And drills and cauldrons.
And scales and
just all kinds of stuff down here as far as farm machinery and old woodworking machinery, traps.
Traps and
just all kinds of things. This is just fascinating. I'm a tool person. So,
oh, okay. Well, then you're in heaven.
I'm looking at this just totally intrigued.
And this is one of my favorite things is the wave machine. This is women's permanent wave machine.
That looks like you should be hooked up to an electric chair.
Some out of the Frankenstein movie. Exactly. I'd be horrified. What we went through.
Yeah.
But anyway, this hairdresser's scene. Most of it came from over in Casper.
Okay. And you've got an old chair and an old hair dryer.
All this stuff came from
and this perm machine.
Casper
Every time I
salon.
see these things, I just,
Yes.
I just am totally. What woman goes in and says, "I think I want to be hooked up to this thing"?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, look at that thing. I mean, it must have taken hours to get hooked up to that. So
Well,
we
perms
have.
take hours anyway.
Yeah, they
for
do.
the most part.
Yeah.
So. But just just the thought of, are you really going to plug that in?
Yeah.
My hair's wet.
My
I'm
hair-
in curls, and you're going to plug this thing in.
No wonder they came out frizzy. So yeah, we've got original Douglas budget printing press. Maris Barrow was the first owner of the Douglas budget.
Okay.
And anyway, we've got
A switchboard.
We've got a switchboard. We've got scenes from different parts of your home. We've got the kitchen, the dining room.
And now, just for people listening that don't know what the old switchboard is, it used to be that your phone had a crank on it. You'd crank the phone, and it would ring into an operator, and then you would tell her who you wanted to be connected with, and she had to sit there and push little plug-ins like what you have in the bottom of your phone or in
Yes.
your speaker or whatever into the next deal in order to get it to ring to the next
And that's
house.
on our scavenger hunt as well. I said to one of the hints says it fits in your pocket today. That one they have the hardest time getting that one right
Oh, I'll bet.
or finding it.
Or yeah, because you wouldn't understand what that.
Littles don't understand what happened. And I went to the Historical Society meeting on Sunday, and they had a guest speaker about from the owners of the Ogallala Ranch, and they were saying they were like, "What was your number?" And they were like, "1 long ring and 2 short," or
Right.
It wasn't a number; it was your ring.
Sequence, like Morse code.
Yeah. And all the ranchers had, that ranch had was like the switchboard of all the ranches out there. Wow. And so they had to call to that ranch, and then that ranch had to plug them into the operator. So it wasn't easy.
Then you got a non-electric vacuum cleaner, one that you had to hand pump.
Yeah.
Now, we did a podcast in Pocatello, Idaho, at what they call the Museum of Clean.
Oh.
That man has over 500 non-electric vacuum cleaners. Listen to the podcast because it's just totally fascinating.
Because I haven't heard of that museum before.
The Museum of Clean is just beyond.
Yeah, because I used to live over in, when I first started my curation career, it was over in at the Jackson Hole History Museum.
Okay.
So I'd go to Idaho a lot, but I had not heard of that one in Pocatello.
Well, he's got 7,000 square feet.
Oh my gosh.
Of 7,000 square feet of cleaning things.
Oh gosh.
And it's totally fascinating. Like I said, listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
You'll be impressed. And the guy that took me through there was 84 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He'd been collecting for a while.
We've got everything from old
toys.
The babies were born and put into this basket, and so every baby that was in this basket is on here at one time.
We've got a lot of babies listed on, and this is a basket that's about 2 foot long and 18 inches wide. Has 2 handles on it, and it's just like an old,
it was like the old
garden basket.
Yeah, the old maternity ward at the hospital, which I forgot to mention, like the hospital out at the POW camp. It was 150 bed hospital. So when the camp closed, that became Douglas's hospital. So most of our baby boomers were born there.
Oh.
Of course, it's not there anymore. But before that, it was just a house hospital here in Douglas. So not until after the war did they have a hospital with actual, multiple beds.
Right.
So it was this house hospital that most of these people were born in, put in that basket. So.
Wow. This museum is just full of interesting things, and I love all your stories.
Thank you. And this map came from the World's Fair. It is getting, unfortunately, dinged up, but it was the 1939 World's Fair,
And this it's a map of Wyoming that has the different reservoirs, all the different towns. different historical sites. You've got Hell's Half Acre, Teapot Dome,
Yep.
Hole in the Wall, the Dome Life Battleground. You got Union Pass, Togety Pass, Yellowstone Lake, Cody, just everywhere in Wyoming, and a lot of the site of Fort Fetterman. Just a lot of
Yep, a lot of our sites that are still.
Really neat map.
Yeah, it's really cool. I tried to shrink it down into like a postcard, but I don't have the talent for that, I guess. But we get a lot of people asking if we had a postcard of that map.
Yeah, that's a neat one to.
So then this is our last room. We used to call it the furniture room. It's kind of our catch-all room. When I came, there was chairs just lining every inch of this room. So we tried to make it when we got all of our new lights, we packed everything up and then kind of thinned it out. It doesn't look thinned out, but it really is. And I found all these baby carriages in storage. So
she's got like 20 baby carriages in the center of this room that are all behind a barricade type thing. But there are all kinds of different looking
various
baby carriages, buggy looking ones.
Yes, our oldest is from 1840, this one. So I started doing some research on some of them. So this one was in 1840s, but they go, of course, to the 50s.
And the one from the 50s looks like your Samsonite suitcase from the 50s with the top cut off.
Yeah, and so yeah, exactly. And it was heavy duty. It's metal.
Is it metal?
Yeah. And
well, it's the color of that blue Samsonite that was so popular in the 50s with wheels stuck on the bottom of it.
And you see the wicker baskets, the mom had hers, and then they'd make doll baby ones for like their older children. So that's what the littler, tinier ones are, but...
And then you've got a desk in here. You've got a really nice cash register.
Yeah, that was a 1909 National Cash Register. You saw a bunch of cash registers on the bar.
Right.
Those were some older. Those were wood upstairs.
Oh, they were wood cash registers?
Yes, I think both of them were wood. This one's the one with the multiple drawers on it, and it did plug in at one time. Now this, and some of these desks are from pioneers who had first businesses here in Douglas. So the desks came from those people. And Ayers.
And then you've got wheelchairs.
Ayers Natural Bridge. So A.C. Ayers was one of our first pioneers here.
Okay.
And a lot of the original stuff, the Ayers family donated.
I really wanted to stop there, but it's closed right now.
It's closed for the season, and then it closed early because the early storm in September knocked pretty much all their trees down. And there's two caretakers that live out there, and it was pretty much them doing all the cleanup. So,
okay.
But it is a very beautiful site.
And I haven't ever been. I drove by it, and I didn't stop.
It's a great picnic place. I went out there this summer, and it was packed. Of course, people were recreating outside this summer more than usual. So, but it was just packed full of picnickers.
Okay, and explain this chair to me.
Oh, this chair.
I've got a chair that's got little tiny arms on it that kind of loop on out and go about 10 inches. The chair has a very straight back, and it's got like the bench part of the chair, but it's got an elevated seat with a cushion on it, like what you'd see in an old ottoman.
And then the matching ottoman.
And then a matching ottoman, and I don't understand.
And of course the head rests, but it almost looks like a head restraint because this is a dentist chair.
It's a dentist chair.
From the late 1800s.
And I see the mechanisms to where you can lay back.
Yeah, so this is...
I still don't understand the seat.
In case the guy needed to wiggle his tooth out, I don't know.
I don't know.
Moved around.
Does the seat swivel?
I think it does.
Yeah. Wow, they were
Yes.
yanking on you
And
and
this
pulling
was-
your tooth.
this
I guess
came
it gave
from-
you an escape route.
Yeah, this came from Du Bois, Wyoming. Your head was fastened in there, but you could wiggle your legs if you needed
And
a
then
kick, I
it's got a
guess.
mechanism that comes down with a bar on it so that you can tip that seat back.
Yeah.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is a cool chair.
Yep. So, yeah, just some chairs, some old wheelchair.
And a couple of old barber chairs.
Yep, this was a podiatrist, that's that foot.
Oh, podiatrist.
Yeah, foot care.
It looked kind of like an old barber chair.
Yeah, this one I think.
I guess you trim your
This
hair
one,
in
I
that
think
one,
this
and you
is
trim
the-
your feet in this
Yeah,
one.
this is also a dentist chair, but it could be mistaken for a barber chair because you could lean your head back and get a shave.
Okay.
but this one is podiatrist. And then just these old wave machines. I had no idea what they were, but they were more for chiropractic offices.
Okay. Kind of like an old Rife machine, or
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what they
deep
did.
heating in the tissue
Yeah.
for therapeutic
So, like,
purposes.
I've been to a chiropractor and they have like this heated wand, the ultrasound thing, and that's what I think this was the original something for that, for chiropractic.
These are cool.
I had some guy come in here with some catalog and he was like, these are like amazing. And I had no clue like that they were anything.
Brevatherium.
But they are
shortwave diathermy machine used for high-frequency heat therapy in chiropractic offices.
Yeah, so I had to do more
Wow.
research and put some labels on them because we didn't have any labels on them. And actually, they were over here by the elevator. They weren't even in this room.
Huh.
So I thought they were just, kind of, ugh. But no, they're, sometimes. And then, then we have all these, like I said, this is more of a catch-all room.
Right.
At first, I think this is the place where our predecessor put everything because it wouldn't fit in storage. So it's it's a music room, it's a furniture room. So, but we've got a lot of a phonograph. Of course, this came from the A.C. Ayers collection. This is pretty cool. The Clockwork Oak Criterion
And it's
music box.
It's got a metal record like the old LPs, all except it's very large. It's half again as big as like a 33.
I'd say it's 12 inches.
LP, at least 12 inches, maybe 14. And it's got a whole bunch of little square notches in the tin,
Like almost like the player piano
like a
notes.
music box or something. Yeah. And
Exactly.
I wonder if you could change those discs out, or if it just played the one disc.
I think you could change them out. I haven't found any in our collection, but like the old phonograph tubes.
Right.
I've found a ton of those because we have a smaller phonograph, and this one came with a bigger horn, and this one too.
Right.
But we've got even a smaller one than this that used to play the old cylinders.
Okay. I'd like to see one of the old cylinder. I have an old cylinder
Oh yeah.
that I bought at an antique store just because I'd never
This
seen
lady
one.
that passed away, before she went to Casper to a nursing home, she called me and I went over to her house and she had this tiny little phonograph and then gave me a box load of cylinders.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, and she passed last year, but yeah, so we have some cylinders. They're in storage right now, but we have a Windsor bed, so that pulled down as a bed.
Okay, kind of like a Murphy bed.
Yeah, and then some of this stuff.
A Murphy bed in a cabinet, I guess is what
Yeah,
you'd call it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for small spaces. But yeah, that's our tour of the museum.
Well, that is just absolutely awesome. I so appreciate you taking your time today, Jenna, to meet with us, to take
you're
me through
welcome.
here.
My pleasure.
To walk us through and talk to us about what you've got. Douglas is a cool town. I had no idea about the POW camp.
Oh yes.
I've learned a lot today, and I hope people on their way north from Cheyenne will stop, take a look at what you've got, or if they're at the state fair, it'd be the perfect time to come in
and we're always
take a look around.
Free admission, so come on in.
Free admission even. How can you beat that?
Free admission right now at all of our sites. I've lived in many towns in Wyoming and worked in the museum business in a lot of them, and I can tell you that Douglas has the best historical community there is. The people here are really devoted to the history of this town, or in this county.
Well, that is just cool, and there is so much history here, and I strongly encourage people to come by. Again, I appreciate your time. I usually finish out my podcast by saying the world is full of wonders. People need to get out and explore. This stuff is everywhere. There is so much to learn, so much to see, so much to do. And I hope everybody has an absolutely wonder-filled day.
Haul the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?